yeah, it's,
Yes, I just turned the video recorder on because we've been going at it. You mentioned the word about the weather and referred to it as bad weather.
yeah,
Now, weather
yeah,
as weather is merely weather. Wind blows, wall of waterfalls, all kinds of things happen. It's weather. Okay, the temperature goes up, the temperature goes down, the barometric pressure goes up, the barometric pressure goes down. But bad weather is not the weather that's bad, it's our attitude about the weather. We don't like it. That's an important point. In fact, as possibly you could learn all the Dhamma you ever needed to know by just being aware that whatever the weather is doing is okay. Because no matter how you feel about it, you can't do nothing about it. Even if you worked at the meteorological place, the big ones, you still can't do anything about it. In fact, local 5-day forecasts are still beyond them. They just can't do anything about the weather
yeah.
except hate it and try to get away from it and go someplace else that you like. But then you can't stay there because you got to go back where you don't like the weather because the rules tell you got to go back home.
Yeah, or you go to Thailand to have some nice weather, right? And then rainstorms happen anyway.
Right. But I broke the rule. You're supposed to be there. I didn't actually break the rule. I just throw it out whole. It's a completely functional rule. It just doesn't be used. In the Dhamma, this is called Sila Bhatta Paramasa. You've heard the word Sila before. Sila Bhatta
Yeah,
Paramasa.
right?
What it means is, can you hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Yes, what Sila Bhatta Paramasa actually means is that we attach to the way things are supposed to be. Now, scientifically, we can use language that is more familiar with us. And one of the words that we can use is imprinting. And that sometimes spectacular things happen that the baby animal of one species will then get in line with the babies of another species.
yeah,
Okay, like a chicken will think that it's a duck. And sometimes kittens think that they're dogs because of the imprinting. Okay. And so we all get imprinted from our families. Another way of looking at it is called the herding instinct or the nesting instinct. And anybody who's going to be part of this nest has to follow the nest rules. And then in the situation of a herd, imagine that you've got a bunch of wildebeest close by, and then the lion is spotted. Now the wildebeest become a herd and they become tightly packed. Well, guess what? The wildebeest that are in the middle of the pack, they can't steer the pack from the middle of the pack. They're caught up in it, and they can't go anyplace except where all the other people in the pack are going. You got to be out on the edge of the pack where it's dangerous in order to lead the pack. But otherwise, you just go along to get along. Okay, and so what the Dhamma is teaching is that hey, we don't have to herd because there's nothing to be afraid of. We're the lion here, in fact. I don't have to follow the herd. Don't have to be part of the pack. Don't have to do what I'm told to do anymore. I could just do the right thing. And what is the right thing? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll investigate things, figure out what's going on, and then act accordingly. Rather than going along with the herd. So that herd, then, in a big sense, is actually the society itself. This is one of the reasons why so many of the various Buddhist traditions will recommend that students get into seclusion, to get away from it all. To get away from it all. You hear that? So, what do Westerners do? They go to a retreat. Instead of getting away, they go something happened. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're back now. Or I'm
Yes.
back.
Hmm. So this seal about the paramasa is also referred to in Eric Berne, and Sigmund Freud knows it also. Sigmund Freud calls this the superego, and Eric Berne calls it the parent ego state. And that parents actually fulfill two functions. One is that when a tender infant is born, the infant has to be nourished and cared for and taken care of. But by the time the child is 5 or 6, it's put to work. Go to school, learn your ABCs, pick up your toys, do what you're told to do. And so the parenting changes from nurturing into critical criticism. And then we imprint with that criticism while we miss out on the nurturing. And we long for that nurturing the rest of our lives. It's almost like we got a hole inside, that we're missing something. And what we're missing is that nurturing. And so what we have to do is to take that critical parent mind state that's unwholesome, this finding discrepancies and faults and things like that, and change that into a nurturing parent where everything is okay, everything is fine. Here, let me feed you and I'll give you diaper change and all is well. Not a problem in the world. Okay, so we nurture the baby inside, the little child that we have that never really grew up. In fact, that's what the reptilian part of the brain is all about. That anterior cortex is just feelings. And we basically talk ourselves into feeling bad by being critical of ourselves and critical of the world. And the Buddha calls those unwholesome thoughts also called a hindrance. And so what we need to do is to stop that, stop criticizing ourselves, and start nurturing ourselves. Everything's okay, everything is fine, no place to go, there's no work that needs to be done, everything is okay. Just relax. Chill, baby, chill. Now that chill, baby, chill, actually the Pali word for that is nirvana. Just to cool, just to chill, just to hang out. But most people have a magical definition of the word. But all it really means is just chill, just cool.
Yeah, also in one of Buddhadasa's books, I don't know which one it was. I think it was like Quenching Without Remainder or something
Okay.
like that. He also described dukkha like a blast furnace, and like the nirvana also like just the absence of the heat of that blast furnace. And he also described that everybody that is at least somewhat mentally well, or at least not mentally completely mentally ill, is sometimes in this state, right? Like
Yeah, sometimes we feel like a nut and sometimes we don't.
because if you constantly were like in dukkha like non-stop, you would just go insane. And the people that have that
Right.
also
You
end
die
up in
by,
specific
by
places.
suicide, die by police,
Yeah,
do something really drastic. You're so wrapped up in how bad you feel, you'll do anything to get out of it. And much of that will be fatal. Okay. You
yeah,
can
and I
also
think
have
it's
aneurysms and heart attacks and all kinds of physical things that, in fact, this one group of psychologists that I know of call cancer is nothing more than people eating themselves alive.
or fighting against themselves, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. Critical of themselves, critical of the world, wanting things to be different, wanting things to be better. And the real teaching of the Buddha is learning to be satisfied with the way things are right now. Everything's okay. Everything is fine.
yeah. I think that's really like you, of course, also said that like multiple times, but it's like really the main thing that is lacking from Western Buddhism, right? Is this cleansing of the mind and not just observing like because that was what I was doing, like with the Sam Harris meditation. Was observing. Can you still hear me? There's a motorbike in the
No problem.
background. No problem. All right. Um, and that was really what I was lacking the most. Like as soon as I heard that teaching and applied it, like it worked like really well, and like got me actually out of like a long state of depression. And yeah, it's like without that, I think some people probably still get into that state by accident, by just sitting there long enough and observing things until they are fine with them. But it's not really the most direct path, right?
That sounds like the story of Eckhart Tolle. Have you ever heard that name?
Yeah, but I don't know the story.
Okay, he sat on a park bench in London. I don't know how many hours a day, but he just decided that he'd had enough of it all, and he just sat down and kind of watched the river, watched the River Thames for about 2 years. And all of a sudden, he recognized, hey, I feel pretty good
Yeah,
because I got nothing to do and no place to go, so I can just sit and watch what's going on. That's basically all there is to it. And I know that there's a whole lot of philosophy and all of that that people in the West get wrapped up with with Buddhism, making it quite complicated. So in fact, it's really simple. The Buddha said that he only taught one thing, dukkha, dukkha nirodha. But then we get into those philosophical questions about what is the self and what is the soul
yeah,
and all of this confusion, to where in fact we don't need to care about any of that stuff. Just in fact, the one that thing that cares, that's the selfishness. And if we don't
yeah.
care, then everything is okay.
Yeah, it's really like it seems like 95% of the teachings in that sense, like in terms of the volume of sentences or whatever, is really just necessary because of all the wrong ideas, right? That are and wrong theories that people come with, like all the baggage that just needs to be said. Like, okay, no, now you think it's this way, but it's not this way. If we just came in fresh without all these concepts, like it would really not need that much teaching.
Mm-hmm. There's not much to it.
Yeah,
Here's an example for you. The farmer is going to be tending his cows, whatever he's doing. There they are, way on the other side of the pasture. And so he's going to go over to the cows. If he keeps his eye on the cows, making sure that he knows exactly where he is so that he can make adjustments in his path and walk right to them, he's going to be covered with cow shit when he gets there. What he needs to do instead is just get the general idea of where the cows are and then start watching every step, because this cow pasture is full of cow pies. And so he needs to watch every step. And some of the cow pies are fresh and steamy, and some of them are old and deceptive because they're crusty on the outside and wormy on the inside. You know the kind. Okay, so,
yeah,
and those are the kind of thoughts that we have also. And so that's the way of doing it is that we don't have to watch for the destination. We've got the general idea of what the destination is. What we need to watch is every thought, every
yeah.
step.
Or like in the language of computer scientists, like no dynamic programming, just greedy algorithms all the way, right? Just the next
Yes.
step.
Well, one of the things that one of the cow pies out there is that, oh, I have to watch for every cow pie. And if I see a cow pie, I got to feel bad rather than say, oh, out of the way, I'll just step aside. And so we basically people beat up on themselves. Goenka talks about that a lot in his retreats when he says, if the mind wanders away from the breath, never mind, start again. Go back to the breath and start again. But the students don't do that. Never mind, start again. They say, aha, You can't do this meditation. This is hurting. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if, and then they just go right down the sewer of bad feelings. And all we have to do is to see that we're going in that direction and stop that. And say, never mind, start again. Another example is that when we fall down, instead of just laying in face down on the pavement, we just pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and boogie on down the road. No need to fuss at ourselves. Nurture ourselves instead. Let's not have unwholesome thoughts. Let's have happy, wholesome thoughts.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of like realizing that in the moment, something that should have hurt because it was unwholesome didn't hurt afterwards.
You broke up there. Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah, do you hear me again? Because I don't
Yes, I can
see.
hear you. Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just said like people.
Can you see me?
I can't see you.
How about now?
Yeah, now you're back. All right, so I said people have like a moment of sati where they realize, okay, they weren't paying attention or they were doing some unwholesome thing, and thinking now that this unwholesome thing, doing this unwholesome thing, should have hurt in the moment, but it didn't. So now they try to make it hurt right now when they're actually not doing this, right? And when they're actually being mindful of the fact that they did something unwholesome, but by doing that, they actually make it like don't have the advantage of making it a positive feedback loop, right? Like it should feel good when you realize that you did something stupid, so that you are more likely to realize it in the future again, instead of like making it hurt when you see it. It will just lead to you avoiding the seeing part, right?
Right. Okay. One thing to point out there is that when we use the word stupid,
Yeah.
that's part of that critical parent. Okay. And so instead of saying that that was stupid, we can say, aha, I saw that. Aha, I see that. Okay. That's like calling the weather bad weather.
Yeah. Using less judgmental language, right? Is
Yes.
important.
Congratulations for figuring that out. That's part of the teaching, is to recognize how critical we are with the choice of words that we use and our behaviors, our attitudes, and that winds up putting us in a victim's position. See, we were born as victims. We were raised as victims. We stayed victims. And when did you ever get actual permission from the society to be fully fledged adult? Nobody ever gets that much. Everybody winds up being a child in the word, or childish, rather than returning to that natural state of feeling all is well because I'm well cared for, well nourished. We always are in that critical state. Oh, I've got to go do something. Things need to be fixed. Go ahead. You froze.
You're breaking up. Like maybe I'm gonna try to change networks here. See?
Okay.
So let's see. Maybe this one is better.
Yeah, I can
Maybe
see
it's
you.
worse as well.
Yeah, you broke up
Okay.
for a little bit,
Okay.
but I can see you easily now.
Yeah. Yeah. This all this critical thinking and like the parents being critical of their children is all basically the purpose of society to program its individuals in specific ways, right? So that we can fulfill roles and I don't know, so that society is able to produce stuff and wage wars and do all of this type of stuff, but we are not working in our own interest as human beings or minds. We are working in the interest of some larger principle, which is not a good one in this case. Like
Hmm.
it's just a natural, or like I guess, yeah, depending on how you define natural, like a process like evolution as well. It's just doing things so that genes get into the next generation, or in this case, societies can um, can like pervert themselves into the future. Breaking out of that by seeing that these rules are not for our own benefit
Right.
is helpful.
That's the funny part is the way that Western society now is set up, it doesn't actually benefit anyone. Even
Yeah,
the most wealthy people are unhappy and disappointed, all because of the idea of the greed. Here's a way of looking at it. In the suttas, there is the position that talks about that if you are really, really poor and in need, then that's not the time to get the Dhamma. That time to get the Dhamma is to get yourself up to a basic foundation to where you have just enough clothing, just enough shelter, just enough medicine, just enough food to stay alive at least, okay? Uh, but we're looking at a poverty mentality anyway. And that some people are just downright deficient and don't have what they need to do. So instead of practicing Dhamma, their mind is completely consumed with the things that they actually need to survive. Okay. And so for that person, we need to bring them up to a level so that they can actually get physically secure, physically comfortable, physically safe. Because if we can't do that physically, then we're not going to be able to get the mind that way. The mind already knows that the reality of the situation is this is dangerous. And so we have to get the mind into a position of being able to accept reality. And the reality is that we're okay, we're safe now. And then we can practice the Dhamma to get things really fixed up because we can now finish that. Now, here's something about society that way. We can look back in the feudal times, hundreds of years ago, that humanity was in pretty dire straits. A lot of people died early and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole thing about society was is that we've got to get the whole population of the earth up to a particular kind of sustainable level. That they're not well below the poverty level, they're at a high level of poverty. Okay, not yet ready for the middle class, but a lot of people are. That in fact, what we call poverty now is not the same thing as poverty back way back when. An example is that this guy's only got 3 pair of shoes. Well, back then they didn't have any at all. Okay, and so we see poverty as actually something 300 or 400 years ago would only happen to a rich guy. So this whole idea of poverty is, let us say, relative. But here's the point. Society has gotten itself up now to the level like the gross domestic product, where all of the nations are comfortable. In fact, the only reason that sets us back is wars here and there. Because the reason people won't have wars is because they want more. They're not satisfied with what we've got. To where, in fact, the world society now is already up to a level that we don't need to go after more and more and more and more. We've got enough now. And the whole world now will be able to change from that scarcity mentality into what are we going to do now that we all have enough? Now, that's certainly going to happen in the future when AI and the robots and self driving cars and all of these labor saving devices come into play. There's going to be a change where a lot of people are going to be caught in the change because they're still attached to greed, ill will, delusion. But there's going to be a whole lot of people who are, one of the things that'll happen is everybody will get really interested in sports, and that'll happen for about 10 years over a period of time. But eventually, humans will have everything that they need, sufficient food, sufficient clothing, so then everyone can practice the Dhamma. And so we got to plan for that future, because there's going to be a whole lot of people that are looking for love. And after they find it in all the wrong places, or they don't find it because they're looking in all the wrong places. And for a couple of centuries now, we've been looking for love in the job. And now we're not going to have jobs to look for love, because we got everything that the job was going to give for us. And so now what are we going to do with our time? Are we going to fight with each other? Are we going to do sports? Or are we going to learn to hang out, chill out, and enjoy life?
Yeah. I also heard like a really good way of saying this, like that now that humans are so much in control of such a large part of the planet's resources and using so much energy, that really the determining factor of the outcome, like what the planet is going to look like in the future, is really human psychology, right? So are we going to be able to fix our own psychology? Then we are going to be able to fix all the other problems, whether it be climate change, distribution of wealth.
There's only one problem to fix, though.
Yeah.
And that is the ignorance that there are problems. The fact is there really are no problems. That's coming from the critical mind. The nurturing mind, there's no problems.
Yeah, or the mind that isn't attached to specific outcomes, right? Like, for example, if one isn't attached to the outcome that you just described, that people are going to have enough food.
Right. So the attachment and the clinging and want it to be different than it is, which is a way of using the word caring, that we care, which means we carry it around. It's heavy because it weighs heavy on the mind because we care about it. And it weighs heavy on the mind whether we care about it and we get what we want, or we care about it and we don't get what we want. It's equally painful because we care so much. I mean, here's a clear example of that they just had another election, a runoff in Georgia. And up until that time, when the Democrats started to cheer, before both groups were in great deal of anticipation. Oh, is my guy going to win, or is that guy going to win? And so everybody's uptight about the election. And then when somebody loses, then that whole group of followers are going to remain uptight. They're just going to change it from being uptight and anxious into being angry and miserable. But until the election happened, everybody who cares about that election is suffering. The people who don't care about that election, you don't suffer because you don't care. If Warnock gets it, if Herschel Walker gets it, doesn't matter. So why should we care? Not our business. And so we can get that attitude about politics. We can get that attitude about almost anything. Leave the world alone and be satisfied and happy. And then the world becomes quite a three-ring circus, quite a show. Because we don't care anymore about it doing this way or that way. We'll just enjoy it the way it is. This is why we care. We care because we like it or we don't like it. And so this actually, the meditation practice is the practice then of learning to stop caring. What do we stop caring about? The things that we're caring about right now that are bothering us. Let's see that and say, aha, I see that caring. And then we don't have to do it much anymore. We can use it as a game to play or a toy to play with rather than a monumental problem, because there was no problems in the first place.
Yeah.
There was just caring.
Yeah, thinking that things are important, right? That the way things are, it's whether it's this way or this way, that's really matters a lot. Like, whereas actually, like, not really, right?
Mm-mm. No problems, really. There's just no problems. We make problems because we care.
Yeah, it's like we are always like, whenever we use language, we are in the world of concepts, right? And like even the word problem even like has some specific expectations to it, right? Like, for example, in mathematics, something is only then a problem if, in theory, like you can formulate it. Like, okay, it's we use exact definitions, like what it is that we are actually talking about, and we are trying to prove something or disprove it, or like we make a statement basically. Okay, this can either be proven or not proven, but there's some way of figuring that out, or at least figuring out that there might not be a solution to it. So in that sense, things are not a problem because they are not in the realm of things that can be solved by a single human being, right?
Exactly right. You could say it this way also: mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Yeah, it's also a good one.
That we actually do create our own reality. That's part of the teaching of Paticca Samuppada, is the things that affect us, that bring on our feelings, is something that we invented in the first place. It's not what we bring in as real. We try to figure out what it is by comparing it to the past. And when we compare it to the past, that's when we bring the selfishness into it, because we were selfish in the past. And so the whole idea then is to stop taking the past to help you make up what's happening in the future. If you don't see what's happening in the future, just keep looking. Just keep watching instead of trying to figure it out. That makes it really easy. You don't have to know. Just watch. Just look at it. Just observe, inside and outside, and make friends with it.
Yeah, what I also found like really interesting, like, was the thought about all this like worrying about the future kind of also has like already some assumptions within it, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like I right now, like whatever that is, that process can in some way gain a benefit from optimizing future circumstances. So, but even if you like can avoid something bad happening in the future, like yeah, it's going to benefit the organism or whatever. But you right now can only take benefit of it in so far that you say, oh, this is a good thing that I did this. And I can feel good because now I'm safe in the future. Um, but yeah, it's like really this process right now does not have that type of causal relationship with the future, right? Like something, however it's going to be in the future, cannot affect how you feel right now.
Right. So this is part of the joy of the practice is, how do you feel right now? How did you get yourself into that state? Because then we can see that, oh, this is dukkha. I don't need this. I could make a change. Take the right effort and become wholesome again. That's all there is to it. And if you wake up and do the investigation and find out that you're already in a good state, then now the only thing to do is to congratulate ourselves. Wow, I was already in a good state. Isn't that amazing? And then we have the idea, wow, I could do this anytime I remember to do it.
Yeah,
Anytime I remember, I could get myself into that good state.
I think that's also like for me that was a really powerful change of attitude in the way I practiced, was like when setting the timer, instead of thinking like, oh now I have to like do the 10 minutes of meditation or whatever, have certain expectations with it. Oh, I can allow myself now to not do anything and just sit here.
Mm-hmm.
Like all this other stuff that maybe comes up later again, I can really set this down so it becomes more of a freeing thing. And it's like really just so great, right? Like to nothing to do.
Nothing to do. All right, well, let's finish this talk. I think that we've gotten some value because you're just about to ready to go into the retreat at Dipa, Bhavan. I think it's on the 11th, and that's 3-4 days from now. So why don't you just go ahead and check in the place and see if there's anybody at the office.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Give me a call one way or the other.
All right.
All
Gonna do
right.
that.
All right, Sebastian, good luck. We'll see you later.
Thank you. See you later.